Hello everyone, please let me know if you can see me and if you can hear me well. Please put a plus in our chat. Waiting for some pluses. Plus. Okay, everything seems to be working. If you do have any problems, maybe re-entering the webinar could help, or just refreshing the page. Well, it's great to see so many participants. As I can see, there are 98 of us here. That's impressive. We are talking about communicative approach today. I can see that there are some colleagues of mine that work for the same school, for Skyeng. So you hopefully know something by this point, because we've been discussing it a lot at our webinars at school. For those of you who work at some different places, there might be something new, there might be something that you already know. Feel free to ask questions. We have a special folder for questions at the top panel. See if you can find it. If you're afraid that a question can be lost somewhere in the chat, you can just leave it there if it's something very important. Well, I think we can begin. I should probably introduce myself first. My name is Olga. I'm a teacher and a teacher trainer. I work for Skyeng.com. Is it com? Maybe ru. I don't really remember. Okay, for Skyeng English School. And today we are talking, ru. Thank you. Today we're talking about communicative approach. Let's look at the plan of our webinar. First of all, I'll present some reasons to choose communicative approach, why I personally find it efficient, and what are the key elements of it. It's also important to know. And we'll see how it works, what roles students and teachers have if they follow this approach, and what main activities you can use. And first of all, let's start with ourselves, and I would like you to vote for the following. What experience of learning English do you have? So think back, remember your childhood. Now the poll has been launched. Please select an option that seems the most suitable for you. So the options are the following. I had great teachers and dynamic lessons. I had very conservative teachers and we mostly studied grammar. I learned most of what I know outside school: music, TV, the internet, for younger colleagues, etc. And I have no idea why I'm teaching English. I hated it at school. So let's see which is the most popular one. Oh, I am pleased to see that I had great teachers and dynamic lessons. Is one of the two popular responses. The second one is I had very conservative teachers and we mostly studied grammar. Maybe not everyone has voted yet, so these two have equal number of votes so far. No one voted for the last option, surprisingly. Maybe someone did. I don't see anyone. And still there are quite a lot of people among us who learned mostly outside school. Wow, the first option is definitely a leader. I am pleasantly surprised. That's great. So people who voted for the first option, could you please share just a little bit how exactly your teachers were great and your lessons were dynamic? So what exactly was so enjoyable, inspiring, and what made you become an English teacher? Because me personally, I would vote for the fourth option. My school English was not very good, and really it's a mystery for me why I am teaching now. You cannot see the results, but I can tell you that our leader is number 1, then number 2, and number 3. These are the results. So if we can go back to our presentation, and if we organize such a poll for our we can probably see that most of them would vote for something different. Maybe they had conservative teachers or very strict teachers or boring lessons or useless lessons, because in many schools it just happened so that English was maybe not very important, or the teacher was not very experienced or quite indifferent to their job. And people didn't really study anything. And in the long run, they just came to the conclusion that they are not capable of learning, or that English is very difficult, or English is something that is impossible to learn for them personally, or something like this. And if we look through our notes in the chat, we can see that interesting lessons, fun, charismatic teachers, inspiring teachers believed in me. That's very important. Creative teachers, oh, too strict, but it didn't stop you. So that's really important. And if you think again, you will probably agree with me that those great teachers encouraged you to speak, and you had this opportunity to speak, not just memorize some boring text and retell it. Please put something in the chat whether you agree with me or not, because if we look at the next slide, this is the question that people ask in real life. They ask each other, do you speak English, if they want to communicate in English. They don't ask each other, do you know grammar rules, or can you read and translate this text, or something like this. So it's very important for the person to be able to say that, yes, I do speak English. Maybe I speak a little English, but still I do speak. And as you can guess, communicative approach, having this root of communicative, communication, is mostly about speaking in real life. And here we have another poll. What is your attitude to communicative approach? Maybe you have already been using it. Maybe you don't know much, but you would like to learn. Let's vote again. Let's see. Maybe you're not sure if it really works, if it gives any results. Maybe grammar translation method makes you feel more confident and comfortable. It's reliable for you. Or maybe communicative approach doesn't seem to be serious. Maybe it gives students too much freedom, in your opinion. Okay, now I can see that, yeah, the first option is the leader. The second one is quite popular, and that's great, because that's what we are going to do here today, to know more about it. Someone is not sure. Someone is voting for number 3. And there are 3 people so far who prefer grammar translation method. If you could just, write a couple of words in the chat why you don't switch to communicative approach, that would be good. Could be something for us to discuss. And those who are not sure if it really works, please feel free to express your doubts. What exactly makes you not sure? Okay, but a third of our participants, almost a third, yeah, a bit less, of our participants voted for I've been using it a lot and I like it, which warms my heart. I hope there are definitely some of my colleagues who have voted for that. Controversial. What makes me sad is that fluency is the priority and it ran away from me rather than accuracy. Principled eclecticism sounds very important. Mixing is good. Yeah, mixing things is always good. Okay, so I think everyone has voted. And can we go back to our presentation now? So we'll try to see what this approach is about, and if you have any doubts, feel free to write, and the chat is growing. Second, if you have a very important question, let me remind you about those questions button. So here we have a lot of text on the slide, but don't worry. We'll talk about every point separately when we look at our further slides. So there are 5 key elements of communicative approach. The first one is interaction. The main point of learning is interacting. So interaction is a goal and a means of learning. Authentic texts, something that people use in real life. They are used in learning situations in this approach. Focusing not only on the language, but on the learning process itself. So learners become more autonomous, more independent, and more involved in their own learning. And personal experiences. Everyone likes to talk about themselves, right? So they would gladly tell you about their own life than about some political situation in some country that they have actually no interest in. And an attempt to connect classroom and real life, something outside the classroom, is also one of the elements of communicative approach. Now we are moving forward, but before we are moving, I would like to look at some messages. So someone has just started teaching, try to use communicative approach, but sometimes, move to grammar translation back. Okay, not everyone likes talking about himself and tell things. Introverts could be taught by this approach. They don't have to talk about themselves, but their communication should be meaningful. That's important. And now we are actually beginning to talk about that. So the first point is to learn to communicate through interaction. So not just read the text and retell it, which doesn't make any sense. If, for example, your friend read a book, the book was great, he liked it a lot, and he gave you the book. And after you have finished reading the book, is your friend asking you, okay, now retell me the story? No, it doesn't happen. We can exchange opinions because our opinions can be different. Or before you start reading the book, your friend can say, you know, this book is really great. It's about the guy who was living here and there, and can start telling you the story because you don't know the story. Yes, only in this situation retelling makes some sense. So according to the communicative approach, if you have a speaking activity, it should be realistic, meaningful, and have some motivating context. So you should have a real need to share or to give advice, to argue, to agree or disagree, to plan something together, and so on. So when you are planning your speaking activities, that's the first question that you ask yourself while preparing. Do people do it in real life, what I can see in the book? Not really. Then you should change it, rephrase it somehow. Not just retell this story, but you are a reporter and you present the story on the evening news or something like this. Well, as for some messages in the chat, yeah, only speaking is something that we never do. We study all skills together. If you work with the communicative approach, all your lessons integrate several skills. It's never speaking only. It could be speaking based on listening or based on reading. But just speaking means that you're not really learning. You're just, practicing what you have already mastered. It's very difficult for me to follow the chat, to be honest, because you keep writing. So again, if someone believes that they have very important questions, you'd better put them there on top. Some students become shy, but it mostly depends on error correction and your feedback that you give. If you keep interrupting them every minute, of course they will become shy. If you let them speak and then you focus on those mistakes that are important to be corrected right now, then they will be more confident. Okay, let us move further. And the next point is authentic texts. I don't know if you were unlucky enough to see the books about the Strogov's family, very popular in the Soviet Union, which was, created specifically for Soviet children who were supposed to learn English but not be able to speak it. So they were far from real life, the sentences were very artificial and the stories weren't real and so on. If you look at some modern books published by Oxford University Press or Macmillan Publishers or something like this, you would see that there are, even for beginners, there are some little snippets as if it is a real movie ticket or a real piece of some timetable or some brochure page or something like this. And for higher levels, of course, you will have pieces of real articles and maybe some newspaper stories, maybe some blogs, something like that. Or they could be like semi-authentic, a bit simplified to suit this level. One of the approaches here is to grade the task, not the text. There are lots of ways how any text, well, of course not any text. You do not give a novel written by Dickens to your beginner students, yes, but if you choose the text wisely, any text can suit the level that you are teaching now. Because you can come up with some tasks that help them develop skills. So even if you show them a real newspaper article, maybe even cut out of a real newspaper, and you ask them to find maybe the city where this event happened, they will be able to do it. Or the name of the person maybe in charge of the company, they will be able to do it. Or how much money did the company make last year? They will be able to do it. And by doing this, they will develop their scanning techniques. It's one of the types of reading. A similar thing can be done with listening. Even your beginner students can listen to, let's say, a song and count how many times they hear the word hello, for example, in it. If there is such a song in which this word is repeated many times. Authentic text should be read by students by all means. Yeah, it will never hurt. As for retelling, well, if you have some purpose for your retelling, it only benefits the situation. If you tell your teenager student, retell the text, their first reaction is, oh, it's so boring, I so hate it at school, why do you make me do it here? But if you say, you are the main character of this story, you come home and you tell your brother what happened, then they have some purpose why actually they are retelling the story. It's simple, it doesn't require a lot of work, but it makes your lesson more meaningful, if you see what I mean. Right then, let's continue. The next thing is focus on the learning process. There are people who believe that if they chose a good teacher, if they paid money to a professional, they can just sit back, relax, and enjoy, and somehow the knowledge will pour itself miraculously in their heads. Well, it's not going to happen. Oh, Oksana, mostly there are English teachers here, I believe, so that's why we're all teaching English. That's why we're speaking it. Maybe you've come to the wrong webinar, maybe you were supposed to come to the students' webinar, that would be in the evening. Right, so students work and teachers help. This is what happens in the classroom that follows the communicative approach. Students are active fighters for their own knowledge. It doesn't happen like in your dream. There are some methods that imply putting on your headphones and relaxing, and English how penetrates your brain. I don't buy it. I don't believe in it. I don't know about you, but it seems ridiculous. But if people know that they should make their own conclusions and they should work actively, if we are talking about groups, they help each other. Peer teaching is a great thing when you have, well, I believe we always have a mixed ability group. You cannot find 5 or 10 people of exactly the same level. Someone is stronger, someone is a bit weaker, someone is faster, someone is slower, and in a group they interact, they help each other, they learn from each other, and they feel more in charge of learning, not like, you know, some passive recipients, some little birds, nestlings, yes, waiting for some mommy bird to feed them. No, it doesn't happen here. And learning their own personal experiences. Okay. Introverts, they don't like talking about their personal experiences, but they have some hobbies, they have some books they read, some films they watched. It could be used. Try to remember your school experience. Did you really enjoy telling people who learned the same thing as you did that London is the capital of Great Britain? I don't think so. But if you share what happened to you, that you had a great weekend or some disastrous business trip or something else that is important for you and something that you want to share, it's really engaging and students will really want to talk. Because in this way they can see how it can be used somewhere else, not only in the classroom. Because in real life we don't tell each other some universal truth about London or some geography or something like this. Yeah, everyone remembers this sentence, that is right, but where exactly can you use it? I don't see any way to use this sentence in real life. And linking classroom learning with real-world activation. First of all, it makes using English less scary. If you practiced something in the classroom, if you practiced asking the way or giving directions or some polite requests with your teacher or your partners in the group, then in some real-life situation you won't be too intimidated to do it when you see some foreigner and you have to ask these questions again. Moreover, in a communicative approach, we connect our language material, our language systems with what people do in real life. So we don't say you have learned present perfect, because no one really needs to know present perfect per se. People need to be able to talk about results. So you can say your student, you will say to your student, you will be able to discuss results of your work with colleagues, or you will be able to talk about what was going on during some long periods in the past and so on. It's important for people, especially for low-level students, because they don't see this connection, how what they are learning at the moment can be used in some other situations. They don't understand that there are is not only to describe their room, it's also to describe some city or a street, or if they are lost and they need to find their hotel, they can describe it somehow and people could probably help them. So we should, you know, draw those links for them. But there's one important thing that makes using communicative approach easier, and actually one thing that enables it. Who is in the center of your lesson? You or your students? We should have another poll now. And while we are waiting for that, we may ask a student, oh, I can see still the old one. We may ask the student to imagine he's going to London. Will he be able to imagine that in London he tells people, you know, London is the capital of Great Britain, in case you forgot. It still is. Doesn't seem very realistic. Okay, so vast majority is voting for students, which is amazing. We have a couple of teachers who voted for themselves. Accidentally. All right. Yeah, mostly students. The students' column is growing. Yeah, Olga is absolutely right. We just give some support and directing them. That is right. Okay. Irina, could you please rephrase your question so that it's more specific, because the way it looks now, Irina Fedotova, the way it looks now, it could be discussed like for an hour, and put it in the questions box. Thank you. Okay, so let's go back to our presentation, and I'm so happy that most of you voted for students, because if you have student-centered lessons, then it's really possible to follow this approach. Because when the student feels that he is an active participant, then learning is more meaningful. They know that they should do something, not just wait for teachers to give them knowledge. What do we do with unmotivated learners? They don't have anything in mind to talk about or are not interested in anything to discuss. That's a great question. How old are those learners? So while I'm waiting for the age, if you have student-centered lessons, it's possible to use elicitation. It's a technique when you extract some knowledge from your students' head, because they always have something. Basically, it's the same explanation that you usually give, but your explanation is in the form of questions. You present some evidence how language works, and then you just ask questions about every situation, and you give a lot of help for them to say mostly yes, no, present, past, first, second, something like this. And in this way, they feel that they have made all conclusions themselves. They have guessed, they have worked out the rules. Sometimes you can see that people are really happy, like, wow, I couldn't understand it at school, at university. I gave up trying to figure out past continuous, and now I understand. Great. You can use guided discovery. You can put such questions and create such situations that they make their own conclusions, analyze something that they see, again, in authentic texts, and they say, oh, that's how it works, that's how the language is used, that's how people, for example, give advice or talk about some things that are going on right now. And again, if we're talking about groups, students learn to cooperate, because it's not like there's a circle of them looking at the teacher only. They look at each other, they help each other, they just nudge each other if they need some help, and they learn to explain, learn to figure out other people's explanation. That could be also a bit limited, because they're learners of English, not teachers, but still they learn to function in an English-speaking environment. Okay, now I will look at the messages about unmotivated students. Okay, if we talk about teenagers, let's face it, they have zero real life motivation for using English, most of them. Without their parents' help, they are not able to go abroad or to go studying in some foreign schools or universities, or to move abroad, or to go on holiday. It doesn't depend on them. Whether they know English well or they don't speak English, now it depends on their parents only. And many of them came to you not because in some near or distant future they are planning to move abroad or to go on a trip or something like this. They came because their parents think that their school marks are not good enough. And being teenagers, they couldn't care less about their marks. The only thing that you can do is to get them involved in the process. Results, goals, it's not about angry teenagers, right? But they like cool things. They like something that is from their teenage life, you see? And if you start putting pressure on them and forcing them to learn grammar, you're not going to win. If you listen to some songs together and watch some movies together, maybe not together, but they do it at home, and they can practice it with you or discuss it with you. They know that you are their friend, that you are not judgmental, that you are supportive and nurturing. They will love you, they will love your lessons. So, what conclusion can we make? The less motivated your student is, the more student-centered your lesson should be. As for groups of 20 people and more, I happened to read some articles and actually see some videos how people work. I don't envy those people. Not because of the situations in which they teach, but it's like, some developing countries. But they work in groups of 100. Somehow they manage to teach. So 20 people are a lot, but it's not like the worst thing. Easy speaking students who have bad grammar. So they are fluent, but they are not accurate. Well, it's very difficult to say what exactly a teacher should do, because I don't know about the level, the grammar difficulties, and so on. Some mistakes, they just fade away naturally. It's important to know what sort of mistakes they're doing at the moment. Maybe it's like they're in the process of acquiring some knowledge. Like, I can give you an example. If a person says, I didn't saw, it's a good sign. Because it means that they understood that there could be regular and irregular verbs, and first they mastered irregular forms, but then they noticed or realized or finally remembered that for negative sentences you need didn't in this situation, and they have to adjust to the switching back to the first form, but they are on the right way. So this mistake, well, it's a mistake, but it's a good sign. It means that they are acquiring the knowledge. I feel pity for those pupils at school. But you don't have any question, Lisa. And as for comments, I can give a lot, of course. Yeah, and it's a good idea that we should teach foreign language to speak. Even if people make mistakes, still they should speak. Yeah, hobbies, computer games, that's good for them. Refuse to discuss, maybe you should think of better questions. If students translated the text with a dictionary, well, they were not studying English, unfortunately. But it's never late to start. Okay, so I guess we can continue. As for us, teachers, in this situation, if the student is in the center and we are just, walking around, providing some help, we are facilitators. We make things happen. We are motivators. School teachers demotivate a lot of students. Nothing personal, just experience. Mostly because of the system. Because a mistake is bad. It's like off a point. Red pen, inviting parents to school, all those negative consequences. That's how they work. It demotivates people. We, on the other hand, if we work wisely, if we want our students to be confident, we should motivate them. We should tell them, yes, you can do it, and we should show it. And we should give them positive feedback, not only negative, not only mistakes, but that's a great thing you've said, and maybe give them some sentence back and so on. And of course we guide them because they need some directions. Yes, we provide them. It's not always easy, especially for those who had different experience of teaching in a teacher-centered classroom, or maybe there are university lecturers among you. It's difficult to switch, but difficult doesn't mean impossible. And if you start, you will see that your students work better, learn more, enjoy things more, and well, if students have fun, teachers have fun too. So if you switch to student-centered lessons, it's important to keep a good ratio of talking time. You should talk no more than 30%. Your students, logically, yes, get 70% of the time to talk. What can help us reduce our talking time? Because, well, why are we doing it? Because we can speak English. We don't need a lot of practice. Our students cannot, and they should learn. And however simple it sounds, people can learn speaking only by speaking. So we should give them this opportunity. So what can help us reduce our talking time? If we use gestures, if for some matching exercise you show it like chuk, 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 you don't have to talk. Or if you show something like word order, change the order of words, you don't have to say anything. If you give short instructions, if you don't explain, okay, now if you would like to practice, I would recommend doing this exercise where you have to choose one of the two verb forms and boom. If you give a very short instruction, which just means do this, they understand you clearly, you don't have to repeat. If you elicit rather than explain, so it's basically the same information, only in the form of questions, but they feel involved and they react, they say at least something, they are more involved, and they increase their speaking time, and yours is a bit reduced. Students of intermediate, upper intermediate, well, fluent but totally inaccurate, you should just single out mistakes and eliminate them one at a time. Give them thinking time before speaking. So you give your task, and then they should collect their thoughts, plan their answers, and if they have a chance to do it, they will speak longer. And ask follow-up questions. So they told you something about their weekend, like they went to the cinema, and you can ask them about the main actors, or maybe some special effects, or were there a lot of people at the cinema, and something like this, so to make them talk more and more. Do's are easy to do. Don'ts are not, because they're bad habits. Some teachers echo a lot. They repeat their students' replies. Right, they have been working here for 3 months. Why? Because we want to support, we want to emphasize that yes, that sentence was correct, but just one word, right, correct, great, perfect, wonderful, well done, it's enough, only one of them. We don't have to repeat. Repeat instructions is another bad habit. It sounds like, okay, now read the text and mark the sentences true and false. If you see that the sentence is correct, you put T. If you see that the sentence is wrong, you put F. So you don't really write anything here, you just circle TF, TF, TF. How many times have I repeated the same thing? 3 times. Why? Because I'm not sure that my learners understand me. But if I know how to give good instructions and how to check understanding, I won't have to do it. Wordy explanations. Some teachers talk a lot, maybe because of their prior experience. Maybe they used to give lectures. Here, our explanation should be minimal. It's just the main idea about some, let's say, grammar structure. If you can combine it with some gestures, it's better. Maybe you can draw a picture, it's even better. When I have a real whiteboard, I always draw. If you can elicit it rather than explain, again, you talk less, they talk more. And if your lesson is not teacher-centered, it automatically reduces your talking time. Okay, intermediate level, explain everything in English. She wasn't satisfied. Maybe you shouldn't explain, maybe you should involve her more in the conversation, because just to listen for a long time could be difficult. Okay, so let's move further. And another thing that helps us to let them believe that they can really speak English is when at the lesson we stick to English. What can help here? Mime and gesture. You can do it with any level. Most of instructions are pretty much the same. And if you show something with your face, with your hands, don't be afraid to look funny. It's good. People can laugh there. They have a good mood. They learn better when they're happy. It's fine. Let them guess from the context. Maybe give some clues. Like, for example, imagine your students don't know the verb to book, and you can hint. It's like booking.com. Everyone knows this resource. Rather than translate, you can rephrase, define, and tell and teach your students how to do it. It helps a lot in real life. And if we use all these principles, it helps us avoid translation. Any questions about how to stick to English, how not to switch to Russian? I don't use L1 with beginners or elementary students, maybe just a little bit, and maybe if they are like 50 plus years old. Because, you know, it's difficult to teach an old dog new tricks. When can we use Russian or any other L1 that you can use? For the sake of saving time. Because they do know that you speak their L1. There's no way for you to trick them like, oh, I don't understand you. No, they won't believe you. So if you see that one Russian word can save you 5 minutes of explanations, say one Russian word. That's okay. So it's like some emergency cases, and mostly for the sake of reducing your TTT. In all the other situations, instructions are standard. After 3-4 lessons, most students are able to understand any instruction. As for grammar presentation, you don't need to explain. Let them figure out the rules by themselves by finding something in the text and asking them correct questions. Like, so, this activity and that activity. Which happened first? This one. Which happened next? That one. Is it important that they left first and their friend arrived at the party next? Yes, it's important. So, if it's important that one activity was earlier, we use that one activity in past perfect. Yes, or which form do we use? Had left. Had left. This is our new tense, past perfect. Yeah, so it could sound something like this. Why do native speakers refuse to teach beginners elementary? I would say that if native speakers are just native speakers, they don't have proper education and experience. If they are fully certified teachers of English, they won't refuse to teach anyone because they know how to do it. Well, as for booking.com, maybe, yes, a student of 13 years old will not guess it. But here you can just explain the situation, or what this verb means. Your student can use English for guessing. You convey the meaning, you get it, but they don't know the English word. They can say Russian word and you can say, oh, exactly, in English it's book. Ah, okay, I got it. That could work like this. Okay, and I have one question on top. The question is about using the approach when teaching English for professional purposes at university. Okay, professional purposes is a very vague notion. Are those people who you are teaching supposed to speak? Because maybe you are teaching some experts who are supposed only to write some reports in English. I don't know. Trainers at Celton said they had to study some Polish to teach elementary students back in Poland. Oh, I don't know about that. I have no experience of teaching elementary students who I don't speak a common language with, apart from English. I do have an experience of teaching like pre-intermediate to intermediate level and higher. That's possible. I would love actually to have an elementary student whose L1 is a total mystery to me, but I haven't done it yet. So Irina, if I'm still waiting for your reply, I can just, future civil employees, they have to speak English. There you go. If they have to speak English, they have to communicate, right? So you use the same things. It's just their vocabulary lists are different. All the rest is absolutely the same. Well, and as our time is almost up, let me show you some useful links. Our school website, and recently we've launched a site for teachers, skyteach.ru. You can find some useful information there as well. And if you're interested in working with us, here is a link where you can apply for a job. So we still have a couple of minutes, and if there are any questions left, I will be happy to answer them. No more questions? Well then, I would like to thank everyone. The links from this slide will be clickable when you receive the presentation by email. You will be able to explore everything. So I can see only thanks in the chat, but maybe if someone has a question, some examples of non-communicative approach. Like read and translate, this is not communicative. Where it can be useful for people who study something like Latin, ancient Greek. Because there's no situation for them to use it in communication. Yes, and if whatever you are doing implies communication, then communicative approach works. Okay, so as I don't see any questions, then thanks again, dear colleagues. It's been a pleasure to kind of talk to you, and it really feels like talking because there were so many active people in the chat. As for L1 with status, oh, that's a long thing to discuss. Of course you can use it, but you will make them more reliant on L1. It will take them a long time to become more confident, because they will translate things in their heads all the time. And actually, you know, someone mentioned CELTA course. I can tell you about my experience, and I believe they repeat it at every course. The course starts with a lesson in a foreign language, a language that no one in the group speaks. In my case, it was Arabic. We had a lesson of Arabic, 100% in Arabic. And by the end of the lesson, we learned how we were able to order some food in a cafe. I still remember some phrases from there. We heard zero explanations in any other language, so it was just, you know, some examples, pictures, a lot of practice, a lot of vocabulary games, and speaking, and we were really able to use all of that. And we understood that if you want something that is singular, you need this form, something that is plural, you need that form, and so on. We got some grammar peculiarities without explanations, just by examples and our own conclusions. It works. Mix could be good, but you should just understand what you are mixing and why. And there are no such competency, yes, such skill in mastering a language as translation. Translation is a professional skill, or it's just a skill that we have to use if we happen to be among people who don't speak the same language. Then we have to translate for some of them. As for the list of webinars, you can find it on the website skyteach.ru. Well, I believe I have answered all questions, so thanks again. Have a great evening. Enjoy your teaching. I wouldn't say only communicative approach. I just know that it works, and well, maybe you should try something else, but most schools in the world adopted this approach, and it seems to be working. Well then, thanks a lot again. Have a great day, and hope to talk to you soon.